Welcome back to the Maxwell DNA Series 2.0. Today, our special guest is Mark. Mark is the founder of the company Smart Culture. He coaches leaders and their teams towards culture transformation. His heart is to create environments where team members can enjoy their work and are being led well. Fittingly, he will speak today on the subject Nurture Transformation. So let's dive into today's episode.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Anya. And without further ado, let us welcome Mark Village. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, good to be with you, Amanda.
We've been talking a little bit off camera, so I'm really looking forward to our talk. And I was telling you that we are really grateful that you came to the rescue because, as you know, we are trying to build. We're in the middle of building the German platform for Maxwell leadership.
Yes, my German's not so good, but we'll see how we go.
All right. Well, my English is getting there. So pardon my French. Oh no, my English. I mean, I will try to cope with English. But before we dive into the topic, let me encourage our audience. In case you are not yet subscribed, now is your chance to do so. Subscribe to our channel and like our videos, please, because your support will help us grow this channel. It will help us reach a wider audience, of course, and most of all, it will help us to add value to their lives. Also, if you want to stay informed about our upcoming events, webinars in German and in English, and more things that we are organizing and planning, follow our Maxwell Leadership Deutsch social media accounts. All of the links are included in the description box. We would love to hear from you. And of course, I'm going to include Mark's contact information. I believe you have LinkedIn. What else do you have, Mark?
LinkedIn, Facebook. I have a website. So yeah.
All right, lovely. So I'm going to include those two in case you want to find out more about Mark, more about his coaching services, and so on and so forth. All right, Mark. Yeah, of course. Mark, well, let us begin. And for our audience, for those who do not know you, tell us a little bit about you. Who is Mark Village?
Yeah, who's Mark Village? Good question. Yeah, so I live in the UK, in England.
Right.
Live near a place called Birmingham. Probably about half an hour outside the city centre, so it's quite pleasant here in terms of countryside. I live with my wife, and I have 3 grown-up children who have left home and are married and have their own children now as well. So we're in a sort of transition stage in that sense. I have probably got what you call a portfolio career. Started off in financial services, youth work, lived for 5 years in India, and have also, been a CEO of a charity, and now run a coaching and training consultancy in culture transformation within organizations. So bit of a varied career, but throughout all of that, being a student of leadership, and came across John Maxwell probably about nearly 30 years ago, in terms of that, and have been kind of following him since then. So yeah.
Awesome. So you've been certified how long? 30 years or?
I've been in terms of being part of the Maxwell team, I've probably I think it's 7 years this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. But you've been familiar with the material 30 years and counting.
Since the early 90s. Yeah.
What was the first book you read? Do you remember?
I think it was 21 Irrefutable Laws.
Okay. All right.
Of leadership. Yeah.
A classic, isn't it?
A classic. The first edition.
The first edition. There you go. Do you still have it? The
I do, yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's on my shelf somewhere. So
Oh, awesome, very good. Well, you mentioned that you have a consultancy firm company, and transformation is at the core. Did I got
yeah,
that right?
yeah,
All right, perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, well, then you're the perfect one, coach to talk about that topic today, because we're going to talk about nurture transformation, one of those Maxwell values, the Maxwell DNA values. Well, let us get into it. How do you define then this value, nurture transformation? What does it mean to you, Mark?
Yeah, okay. I think some people are what I would call accidental in the way that they lead. And I think what happens is that you may show or tell people how to do things, but actually you need to walk with them for a while to actually help them. It's more like an apprenticeship model, I would call it, so it's like the idea of showing somebody or telling somebody how to do it, but then enabling them to do it, and you watch them do it, and then you kind of hopefully they take on that role. And I think nurturing is about that, is about not just kind of abandoning people once you kind of tell them what to do, or say it's not about giving somebody a task or a job or a role without actually resourcing them to do that. And I think sometimes we are leaders can sometimes do that without thinking. The transformation part is like saying, okay, well, I am who I am right now, but it's I can be somebody different, in the sense of you're authentic to yourself in who you are, the gifts, the skills and things that you have, but also there's things you can improve and grow in. And that comes, for me, transformation comes out of curiosity. It's that kind of, when we're small, when we're young, I remember when my son was very small, it was, why we do that? Why do we do that? Why do that? It's all the time they're asking questions.
Yeah.
And I think we somehow lose that ability at some point during our adult life, but actually that's a key to finding out. I think John has put it the way that I need to be the dumbest person in the room, and not, if I'm the expert, I need to change rooms. And I think that's true. I think transformation is about being with people who are further ahead in the journey. We're learning from them. You become like the company you keep, don't you? So I think it's important to do that. But transformation comes because you're actually hungry to know more, learn more from what happens. And, we learn, the funny thing is we learn most through our mistakes often. So, so I think we have to be comfortable with that. And yeah.
And between the lines, I mean, curiosity, you mentioned curiosity at the core, but in between the lines, I read an element of humbleness. We have to be humble.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you think you know how to do something, then you're not open to what other people might say into that situation. And I think being humble or having humility means that you're willing to learn from others, and you're willing to give credit where credit is due. If it's not you that's done it, you're happy to credit your team or somebody else with doing it. Humility is a massively underrated value in leadership these days, and it's amazing what the tide rises for everyone. If everybody's winning, then the tide is rising for everybody, and we forget that as a leader sometimes we think it's got to be all about us, but it isn't. When we celebrate what's going on in the team with those around us, then everybody rises at the same time. So that's really good.
Yeah, beautiful. You mentioned at the beginning something very interesting as well, and I see that this is probably a worldwide phenomena, meaning people don't usually think about that, right? About their own transformation, their own journey, areas of their lives in which they need to get better at. Do you find that a common denominator in your line of work?
Yes, I think sometimes we're what people call unconsciously incompetent in some areas. Now, some of those things we can become more aware of, and think of ways in which we can actually mitigate that. I mean, we'll never ever be good at what we're weak at.
Yeah, right.
So I think sometimes we have to, major on our strengths, but be aware of our weaknesses so that we take action that means either bringing in other people into those areas, or yeah, I think really just kind of being aware that sometimes we just do things that are not good because they're weaknesses for us, and can cause damage, therefore. So it's just being aware of that and actually thinking about, well, okay, how can I manage that? How can I regulate that? Being aware of it. I mean, growth, we're not always aware of what we're growing or want to become.
Right.
Sometimes we meet people later in life and think, I really want to, be like that. But they've got to be people beyond us, beyond where we are right now. And I think that's the stretch. If you're going to grow, you've got to take a step outside of your comfort zone and try things that perhaps don't come naturally to you. So yeah.
Right. Were you always inclined? I mean, nurture transformation is very demanding because you're like really working with people, taking them where they are, and inspiring them and then helping them to find their strategy and define their goal. Were you always inclined to help to work in this area?
I think I've always been interested in how people grow, how people reach their potential.
Okay.
I think along the way, what I've learned is that some people have reached their capacity, and maybe I have to be happy with that. I think sometimes I can be far too optimistic about what people can do. So I think along the way you learn that, but also I think most people are not fulfilling their potential. And I think therefore it's about recognizing that in people and then encouraging them to maybe think a bit further and think a bit broader and wider and have a bigger vision for their life. Yeah.
It might be, we probably won't have time for this one, but this is very puzzling for me. They you mentioned right now, they can't and they won't feel their potential. There are probably a long list of reasons why. Give us maybe like your top 3. Why can't they feel their potential?
I think sometimes it's limiting beliefs that people hold about their own, the way they view themselves. They think that they may not be able to do it. They may be fearful of failure. I think that's a big one. And then I think it's just not being aware of what they could possibly do. I think some people live in a bubble, and it just depends where they put themselves. I think sometimes you have to kind of put yourself in an uncomfortable environment, or not something that's not familiar, so that you actually learn more about yourself and learn, oh, maybe I can do that. And I think that's about deliberately being intentional. I think is the big factor. Lots of people live their lives accidentally, one year after another. Success doesn't become repeatable because they can't figure out how they did it in the first place. But I think if people are willing to learn, if they're willing to take risks, if they're willing to, there is a cost to growing.
Yeah, right.
It's not something,
not cheap.
No, it's not. And you have to kind of, assess the cost, and you have to say, okay, yeah, I've got to do this and I've got to do that, and I've got to learn this and put myself out there. If you're willing to do that, then it's quite amazing what you can achieve. And I think that's the fact. But I think fear of failure is a big one, and limiting beliefs would be the top 2, I would say.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we had to come back and just talk to us about those two subjects, because they are so interesting and powerful. What are some of the challenges that you have faced? I mean, is it fair to call you a transformational coach or transformation coach, or an agent of change? Is that fair to say that? Right?
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I work with leaders to develop them to create environments where transformation can take place. Yeah.
All right.
So that would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to us about some of the challenges that you face.
challenges are that people think that they're okay. So there's two questions I ask leaders when I first meet them. One is, how long have you been here as the leader? And the second thing is, how do you feel about your current reality? Okay, so if somebody's been in post for 18 months, 2 years, then the reality around them is a result of their leadership. If they don't like their leadership, then to go further than that is, well, what are you going to change? You know, the Einstein quote, you know, if insanity is definition is, you know, doing the same things and expecting a different outcome. But we can only get a different outcome if we change something. And I work with leaders to actually help them understand their behavior and actions don't have to be natural, if you like, in the sense of your natural way of doing things. Because sometimes those are good things, but sometimes they're also not so good things, and you kind of end up in a conversation where you're having a fight, or you've upset somebody and you're kind of thinking, what on earth happened there? Something went wrong in the process. So being aware of what changes the reality, and it might be that you need to alter your behavior, alter the way that you think about something, change your view. And that's possible, but it does take a bit of work. So I think probably the challenges are helping people make those things visible, perhaps that they're not aware of. What is it like to actually be on the other side of you as a leader? And that can sometimes be a bit sort of painful. And sometimes people don't
painful for you or for them?
Well, it can be painful for me if they don't like
right.
I mean, most people I speak to are willing to learn, otherwise they wouldn't have me there as a coach. But it's interesting to kind of the fact of the matter is, you can't change what you can't see. So I'm helping people to see what it's like to lead in different ways, so you get a different outcome, and making an environment positive for all, so that all can make their contribution is hard work. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is to say that leadership isn't just about status. It definitely isn't about status. It's more about responsibility and serving. And as your team rises up as a result of your interaction with them, so do you, and your reputation. So yeah, I think the challenge is really just kind of realizing how long it might take. But actually, every journey starts with the first step, doesn't it? So yeah.
What how have you overcome? Well, yeah, I think two different questions. How have you overcome these challenges, and what have you learned out of this?
Yeah, I think I think I'm deliberately putting myself in places where I'm uncomfortable. Is one of those things. I'm not naturally somebody who likes to kind of step out and take risks in that sense, but I'm willing to, because I actually want to grow. My priority is to grow as a person, to grow as a leader, and because of that, I'm motivated to actually take those risks and do that. It's a bigger priority for me than the discomfort that I feel as I'm doing it. So I've learned to actually do it. I've also learned that failure is not really failure unless you don't learn anything. And I've learned a lot through my failures. As John puts it, it's about failing forwards, isn't it? Rather than just saying okay, or quitting at that point because it's just been too difficult. So I think if we have the right mindset, having the right mindset is really important. So if you have that view of life, that this is a place of learning, it's not a place of it's not where I need to fall over. I can still keep going. I can learn from others. I can tap into other people who are further on. If you're willing to do those things, then I don't think there's any particular limit to what you can do or learn, for that matter. But the challenge is, it's that resilience, isn't it? The ability. It's not that you get knocked over; it's that you can stand up and keep doing. I think Nelson Mandela said that. It's not the fact that I get knocked over; it's just how many times that I need to stand up more times than I get knocked over.
That's right. You know, it's interesting. We have a favorite saying at this our home with our kids. You know, I don't know if that makes sense in English. How can I translate it? Leben ist kein Ponyhof. Also, life is there is no pony. I don't kind of corral. I don't know. You know, in that sense, you know, it's not fun and party all the time, right? Sometimes life is hard, and most of the time, in a sense, it's very hard. So we have to get used to it and learn the skills to break through.
Absolutely. I think somebody said it took me 20 years to be an overnight success.
That's good. I like it. I like it. I'm gonna write it down. Hold on.
But the way you view things, as John says, the way you view things is the way you do things. And
Right.
if you view things as an obstacle or a insurmountable challenge, then that's what will happen.
Right.
You know, we underestimate the power of the way that we think about things.
Mm. Well, you're a veteran in many different levels. You know, as a coach, as a person, as a family man, as a business entrepreneur, and so on and so forth. But looking forward, how does this Maxwell leadership value, you know, we're talking about nurture, transformation, shapes your future when you look ahead?
It's interesting you say. I was just having a conversation with a friend before this call, and he's
Ah,
reading a book called about strength, and he's talking about the second half of your life. And
okay.
we were laughing because he was saying this guy's talking about that the second half of your life is about decline, and I was I was challenged. You know, I was challenged by that. I was thinking, do I feel like I'm in decline? I've started a business when I'm 54, so I don't feel like I'm in decline. I feel like with nurture and transformation, it's an ongoing process.
Mm,
And I kind of feel like I want to be running as fast as I can when the finish line comes up. You know,
mm.
I don't, I mean, I may not have as much energy as I thought I did, you know, that
I don't think about it. I don't think about it.
no, I just want to keep going. And I think that the way you do think about things, I mean, lots of people around me are, you know, thinking about retiring.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, I don't want to retire. I enjoy what I do. And I think as long as I'm enjoying it, as long as yeah, that kind of helping others, you know, I
Mm,
think it does become more about legacy the older you
mm,
get. But
mm,
I think it's also I have energy for that. That excites me. That kind of what can I pass on to the next generation? What can I? But also, what can I do for myself? I
mm,
don't feel like you stop learning because you get older. I mean, John's in his mid-70s and he's still
mm.
as energetic to learn as he ever was. And I
Right,
think we need to nurture that mindset. You know, it doesn't
right.
happen accidentally. It's like you almost have to reject the thinking around you and just say, I don't believe that. My belief is that I can continue to grow until I pass away, I think, in one sense.
Absolutely.
And you know, interestingly enough, I think science is proving that. Neuroscience, the way it's looking
Mm,
at things, I think there was a prevalent thought that you know you couldn't be retrained after the age of 45, and
mm,
I think that that's been debunked. I
right.
think you know your brain can keep growing, keep forming new connections. You just need to remain in that lane and in that mindset that
Mm,
says I can keep growing. So I
mm,
think you have to nurture that mindset, and
absolutely.
and as you do that, you will transform. You know, you're not, you know,
Mm,
the idea, I don't want to be the same as I was
right.
10 years ago or 5 years ago. I want to have grown and changed. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as we throw wood in the fire, right? I mean, you know, just to keep
Yeah.
looking forward, to keep getting stronger, and it will we will enter a nice virtuous cycle. Does that make sense at all? Right. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, in which you learn, you grow, and you want more. You learn, you grow, and you want more. Right.
Yeah. I think it's about having those questions. I mean, some of the questions that have come out of the Maxwell training, you know,
Hmm.
what did I learn today? What spoke to both my heart and my head? Those things.
Mm,
How did I grow today? What touched my heart and affected my actions? And what will
right.
I do differently?
Mm,
You know, having those kind of questions that you constantly reflect on, enables you to think about, okay, that didn't work, that worked. What do I want to repeat? What do I want to avoid? I think we can keep going with those things as long as you keep asking yourself those questions. There's a discipline involved as well. And some of us don't like discipline.
It hurts. It hurts.
That's right. But I think if you're the truth is that actually to grow and to become all you can be as a leader is hard work.
Right.
But the rewards are there as well. And I know it's a responsibility to be a good leader and to lead well. Right. But also there's a lot of joy in it as well. And I think you can't have one without the other, but there is joy in it.
That's right. Oh, Mark, man, it has been a delight talking to you. The time is almost gone. It's amazing. We have to repeat this in the future because there are so many topics that we can cover, that we can talk about. But before we leave, as I told you before, some of the people watching us right now are either thinking about becoming a coach, others might be already coaches, but are looking for a community of coaches to belong to. And others are thinking maybe about getting their first certification, or maybe just expanding their portfolio of certifications, because it will help them become better leaders, and therefore equip others. What can you tell them? What can you tell them to encourage them to consider becoming part of the Maxwell Leadership family?
Yeah, I mean, I think the things that John has put into the Maxwell Leadership program is really thinking hard about the intentionality behind leadership. And I think whatever, there's obviously really good stuff in terms of the coaching material, and obviously the leadership development is a theme throughout. And it's a growing community of people. And, one of the things that John has is integrity, and he does want to make sure that people grow, but grow authentically. And he's a guy who's been writing about leadership for over 40 years. Doesn't show any signs of slowing down.
That's right.
And I think you've got like-minded people. If your desire is to serve others and work for their highest good, then you'll find a good community of people who will do that around you. And we have to be around others to grow, to be challenged, to work together, to collaborate. And I think the Maxwell Leadership team did do that. So yeah, don't have any hesitation recommending them.
There you go. Thank you very much. Well, as I told you before, if you want to stay up to date regarding our events, the upcoming events, webinars, and much more, you can find all of the links in the description box. Follow us, and we will love to hear from you. Mark, before we leave, before we depart for today, one last word of encouragement for our audience, please.
Don't give up, I would say. If you need to reach out and get some people around you. You can't do these things alone. There's no such thing as a solopreneur, as it were. I think you need to find others who will challenge you, who will hold you accountable. But yeah, keep going. You are able to do this, and just have that mindset that says, whatever happens, what can I learn from it?
Awesome. Thank you very much. And to our audience also, thank you. Next week we'll be back with the last of the Maxwell leadership values. Until then, I wish you all a successful and blessed day. Have a good one. Bye-bye.